Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to Her Drive. We are all about sharing the stories of women, their profound aha moments, life changing twists and turns. And today's guest, we are sitting down with Lori Brand, who is the author of Bodies to Die For. This is an exploration of the cultural obsession with body image, perfection, and the lengths people will go in the pursuit of having an idealized form. And many of my longtime listeners know that I have certainly been on that wheel several
Yeah.
times. And I think it grips all of us from time to time. And through Lori's powerful storytelling, she really unpacks this dark undercurrents of beauty standards, etc. So without further ado, I would like to welcome author Lori Brand. Hi, Lori.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
It's my pleasure. So first and foremost, tell us about your book.
Okay, so my book is a thriller. I don't know if people caught that like right off the bat. So it's not, frequently these books on diet culture and things are nonfiction. This book is a thriller. I had something to say, but I'm a big thriller reader. So I thought I would sort of slip my message into a thriller. And I can actually read you like the back cover copy, like the
Yes,
summary if you want.
please.
Okay. Right. Popular fitness influencer Gemma has transformed herself from a before into an after, complete with washboard abs, thriving business, and gorgeous husband. But social media can be deceiving. Offline, the cutthroat world of bikini bodybuilding just may eat her alive. That's if she's not first devoured by the secret nemesis that lurks beneath her polished surface, waiting to destroy her. Software engineer Ashley is fat and frustrated with failed diets, with a world that wants her to shrink, with biased doctors, online trolls, and even her own mother. Until Ashley falls in with a mysterious and radical sect of fat activists who are fighting back by any means necessary. She's never felt so alive, so full of purpose. She'll do whatever it takes to ride this high, destroy diet culture, and win the approval of her charismatic leader. Gemma and Ashley are on a collision course headed for the Olympia, the bodybuilding competition where futures are made and lost. When Gemma's toughest rival turns up dead and more fitness girls fall like dominoes, it's beginning to look like the body image war has gone too far. With its breakneck pace and keen insights, Bodies to Die For takes a hard look at social media, the $70 billion diet industry, and the war on women's bodies, the wars we wage with each other and the wars we wage on ourselves. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's so juicy. And I'm glad that you very quickly illuminated that
Yeah.
it is. Oh, I lost my microphone. What's happening?
Oh, okay. Okay.
That it is a thriller. And
Yeah.
I have read many self-help books. I don't let myself go into fiction all that often anymore, but I have been, for lack of a better word, dying
Uh-huh.
to actually read one that's more enjoyable, but still
Okay.
hitting on some societal messaging. So
Yeah.
fascinating, and I love that you packaged it in such a sneaky way.
Yeah. I did too. It was really fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I bet that was extremely fun to write.
Yeah, I had previously I had been writing for fitness magazines. I'd written for Strong Fitness Magazine, T Nation, Inside Fitness Magazine, and things like that. And when you write for magazines like that, you're essentially preaching to the choir, right? The people who are picking these magazines up are people who already are interested in getting strong, and that's one of like the sub messages of my book is the importance of getting strong. And it was a I thought it was kind of like a backdoor way to like reach a bigger audience on, how important it is to get strong, and also how important it is that as women, we need to quit tearing each other down and work together to lift each other up. The negativity when we pick on each other's bodies, when we talk about each other's bodies, when we say mean things to ourselves in the mirror, not just about each other, but about ourselves. Right. And I really wanted to touch on how harmful that can be, and a better way, right, to be each other's best advocates.
Oh, shoot, you're fully speaking to someone who understands all of that, and I feel so
Yeah.
lucky to be surrounded by women who are so powerful and uplifting.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, but it wasn't always that way.
Yeah.
So tell me, how did you I want to go into your personal story, but I want to dive into a little
Yeah.
bit of the book first,
Sure. Okay.
because I'm sure there's a lot of your personal life that was
Yeah.
inspired a bit of the book.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm curious, how did you choose the characters, the main characters?
Okay, so yeah, there's two main characters. It's told from two main points of view. There's some smaller characters on the side, but so Gemma is the bikini bodybuilder. She's somebody who lost a lot of weight, and she went through like this transformation, like on Instagram. She's got like a before and an after, right? She got this big following, and she's got this perfect body. And on Instagram, it looks like she's beautiful and she's got it all together. And I wanted to contrast her with Ashley, who is an overweight software engineer who really has a pretty good life. She's got a good job, and except that for the way that the world treats her because she's overweight. And so I wanted to show how harmful diet culture can be, not just to people say who are overweight, right? Because Ashley's got to deal with some of the way that the world treats her because she's overweight, but also how it can treat somebody like Gemma, who technically, anybody would look at that and think she's got the perfect body, right? She's won, right? She's getting up on the stage at the Olympia, but when she looks at herself in the mirror, she's terrified that what she considers to be fat Gemma, this internal voice inside of her, is going to come roaring back and destroy everything. And I really wanted to show how you can have the perfect body, but if you're always looking for external validation, if you need somebody else to tell you that you look really good, you're maybe never going to be completely confident in yourself. And not only that, but beauty standards are always changing, and even like one set of judges might be different than a different set of judges. And so again, if you always hang your hat on that external validation, you'll always sort of be left wanting and insecure. And like at the end, the idea here at the end is that rather than chasing these elusive beauty standards, that instead you chase strength, because there's nothing arbitrary about, like, say, if you want to set your goal, like I want to squat 100 pounds, nobody can say like, well, it wasn't really 100 pounds or didn't mean 100 pounds that way. Like 100 pounds is 100 pounds. And you can start to like set these goals for yourself. You can start to attain these goals, and it builds your confidence. It builds, I really believe that not getting strong just physically, but I believe it changes you mentally. And I just really wanted to illustrate that. And so Ashley, that the overweight one, has this big arc as she grows. She ends up like, I don't have that character actually lose any weight, but I have her get strong. She takes up boxing. And as she starts to get stronger, she starts to feel more confident, and suddenly she's not so angry anymore. And she becomes she just starts to really embrace life. And I just wanted to illustrate that story through both points of view. That's why I chose those two characters.
Yeah, well done. I think that's brilliant.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Well done. So, for those who don't know bodybuilding or know what Olympia is, it's a very
Okay.
big, important show. And
Yeah.
I used to compete, and it was, I've always been athletic my entire life.
Yeah.
But it really was, at one point, I was very depressed and I was eating a lot of sugar, like Nutella by the
Mhm.
spoonful,
Yeah. Yeah.
and gained weight. And I saw a girlfriend of mine who did a show, and I was like, oh, if she can do that, then I should. And that
Hmm.
became like a goal of mine. But as I
Yeah.
got into the world of bodybuilding, I started to, I forget develop some mental
Mhm.
illness around
Yeah.
body image,
Sure.
right? So I
Yeah.
think that world, while it can be extremely empowering and great goals,
Yeah.
it can shift you if you're not careful. And I was lucky enough
Very
to,
much.
kind of grab myself and move out of it slowly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you do see people with these perfect bodies, but you almost have to be completely obsessive uh,
Yeah.
to be in it, and that can be relatively unhealthy at times. And I'm not bashing bodybuilding.
No, I know, right? Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I always tell people, so in my in my book, like some of the women who are bodybuilders are very nice because it's a thriller, right? It's got to be. I got to have people die. I got to have like multiple potential people who could have done it. But in general, outside in the real world out there, bodybuilders are some of the kindest people that you will ever meet. And I think partly it's because if you're going to pursue bodybuilding, and I was a bodybuilder for a number of years, if you're going to like legitimately pursue it, um, there almost has to be like, I hate to say it, but almost like a hole inside of you. There's got to be a real driving. There's something that drives you. Most people don't want to drop down to that kind of body fat, right? To really do it, there's got to be something driving you. And I think that potentially that like hole in all of us is maybe what lends many of these bodybuilders to be so kind, you know?
Oh, yeah, what a
That's what
beautiful
I think. Yeah.
yeah, what a
Yeah.
beautiful way to put it. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, let's talk a bit about your own personal journey through
Yeah.
wellness and how
Okay.
it's kind of led you to where you are now.
Okay. So, so I always, this whole thing started back when I was like 10 years old. So when I was 10 years old, my dance teacher had her jaw wired shut. And it left she did it intentionally, right? She intentionally had her jaw wired shut because she wanted to lose some weight. And for several months, she couldn't teach the class. She had her assistant teach the class because her jaw was wired shut. And it left such an impression on me that a grown woman would wire her jaw shut so she couldn't talk. She could only drink through like a straw. And she could only talk like this because her jaw was wired shut. That that not only would she do that, but that the world would shrug. You know, all the other moms and everybody, nobody was freaking out. Like all the other moms, including mine, who I have a great mom, but you know, it was all different time. But everybody kept dropping us off at this dance, studio every week, and nobody freaked out. And it left such an impression on me. You know how important was it to be thin? It was that important, right? And so that's really when it first pinged for me. And then I've been a dancer forever. I was a gymnast forever. So I'm in that realm. When I was in college, I was a stripper. Now I've monetized it, right? And then so I was always, and then even after I got done with that, even when I was a stay at home mom, I hung out with a lot of other stay at home moms. Get a group of women together, and what's the first thing we do? We start talking about like, oh, do I look fat in this? Should I lose some weight or whatever? And it really wasn't until I was about 40 years old when I had kind of gone through a like almost like a midlife crisis. My youngest kids were in grade school, and all of a sudden I had some time to myself, and I realized like I was just getting pushed around everywhere. Like I had nothing left for myself. Like I gave myself completely away. I did whatever anybody wanted me to do. And for like the last maybe 5 or 6 years when my kids were little, I had not exercised anymore because I was so busy. And even though I hadn't gained any weight, I like my mentally I got weaker. I was just getting pushed around by everybody. And I decided, and up until that point, I had always exercised and lifted with a goal of like a package of like what I would look like. I was always externally based. And when I had this like midlife crisis, I remember I decided I wanted to get strong. I wanted to look vaguely threatening. I wanted to feel like I could punch somebody if I wanted to. And so I started lifting weights then with really the goal of like being like scary, and and after just doing it for a few months, I realized that I was no longer so pissed off. I felt really great and I was like really happy. And I realized that because I was, instead of trying to shrink, I was trying to like make my body strong. And so I wasn't focused on what I couldn't eat. I was focused on what I needed to like nourish my body, to feed my muscles, and it was like a growth mentality. And it was like a cage door opened, and I couldn't believe I had wasted decades of my life trying to like attain this exterior shape and, trying to shrink myself down when I switched my goal to just getting strong and to growth. I mean, I, I really didn't really gain any weight or anything, but it was a different change in mentality. And I was like, oh my God, this is the answer. And that's when I started like writing articles for fitness magazines. I became a fitness instructor. I'll talk your ear off. I can meet if somebody starts telling me that they want to get strong, I will talk their ear off. And I'm practically like an evangelical, like on strength training. So yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that's what happened.
How glorious. And, when you mentioned the internal shift,
Yes,
that is what I think movement is all about. I
yes,
am someone who like needs daily movement, whether it's just
Me too.
Zumba flow or dancing around,
Yep.
or like lifting, or I'll do anything. Like I just love moving
Yep.
my body. And if
Yep.
I don't,
Yep.
I very quickly become like grumpy, and I can't discern where the grumpiness is coming from until I wake
Yeah.
up. I'm like, oh, wait, you haven't been really active lately.
Yep.
Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. Just simply going outside and like taking a walk in the sun is like, I mean, it's better than therapy, you know? um, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, definitely the movement, and then the
Yeah.
solar charge. Well,
Yeah.
so you move into this like really empowered state,
Hmm.
and um, when did you have the download that you wanted to author a book?
Oh, yeah. So I know exactly. I know exactly when it happened. So in January of 2020, Jillian Michaels was interviewed on BuzzFeed News, and she was asked what she thought of Lizzo as a body positive role model. And Jillian said, why are we celebrating her body? Why aren't we celebrating her music? Because it's not going to be awesome if she gets diabetes. And social media blew up,
Yep.
right? Like it just blew up. I mean, a lot of people remember that. There were like, God, there must have been like over 1,000 comments on that, and I was reading all these comments, and the vitriol hurled from both sides. Some people were saying, Jillian was body shaming, and they were really angry at her. Other people were saying, no, it's really, it's important. We need to quit normalizing obesity. But the anger in the comments from both sides, these warring factions, right? The healthy at any size movement and like the fitness movement, right? They were like clashing in the comments. And it really struck me. I thought, what if this body image war moved offline? And so that's when I first started thinking about it. And then a few months later, Adele posted a birthday picture of herself to Instagram. And in the picture, it was again clear that she lost a lot of weight, but all it was a birthday picture of herself. And all these people, and again, her comments just exploded. And some people were saying that they were disappointed in Adele. They felt that she had let them down because they looked up to her as a body positive role model. Other people were saying, no, it's great. Adele's getting, healthy. But the thing is that a woman ought to be able to post a picture of herself to social media without the entire world judging her for it. And it was this body war that I was like witnessing that I thought, I wanted to explore like if these two warring online factions met in real life, what might happen. And that's how my book was born. Yeah.
How juicy. And I do
Yeah.
recall both of
Yeah.
those.
Yes.
Uh,
They were
they were
huge.
so
Yeah.
huge. And I
Yeah.
am someone who loves to dance in the gray areas and then like explore
Yeah.
every single perspective. And
Yep.
everyone has their point. But at the end of the day, it's like what you mentioned. Can't we
Yeah.
just live our lives?
Yeah. Why do we need to judge each other? Right. Like,
Right.
and so often we say, society this, society that, we blame society, right? But who is society, right? We are society. And so the way that we talk about each other, or the way that we talk about ourselves, or sometimes the way that we talk about other women when our daughters are around and they can hear us, we're responsible for the world that we bring the next generation into. We're responsible for the world that we exist in. Even if somebody's not in the room, if there's a group of say 4 women talking, even if you say something negative to somebody else regarding a person who's not there, and the other people there witness it and they hear it, it's just such a negative thing, and we're responsible for this world that we live in. And I would really like anybody who reads this book to take a real hard look at themselves, like on how they interact, the type of things that they might say to somebody else, the type of thing they might say about themselves when they look in the mirror, if they've got like a 4-year-old daughter around,
Yeah.
like what kind of role model do we want to be? Yeah.
I think
So,
those are beautiful points. And you're
yeah.
right. We do, people make up society. So
Yep.
as
Yep.
one begins to shift and awaken to the way in which they're speaking of
Yeah.
others or themselves, they can then make ripples outward and totally impact the way we're all showing
Yeah.
up for each other.
Yeah. I
Mm,
agree.
yeah, amazing. So tell me about the authoring process and um, how you met certain challenges along the way.
Yeah. So, and if you potentially have any people listening to this right now, this is yeah, feel free to reach out to me if you have any author questions, because I will say, getting a book traditionally published is so hard. This was actually the second book I wrote. I wrote another book maybe about 10 years ago, different subject, different everything, but it was a thriller. But I never was able to get an agent with that book. And when I look back at that, I wrote that book, I queried it, I couldn't get an agent, and I started to get feedback that I realized it was going to need a serious rewrite. And I just didn't really feel like it. But when I wrote this book, maybe 8 years later, this was like the story that I needed to tell. Like I wrote, like I dedicated this book to all women everywhere. I was determined that this book, I was going to get this book out there. I had something to say, and damn it, I was going to say it. And so I had to like make time for it. It's not easy to do something like this. So every night I have a day job. I work as an engineer. Every night when I was done with work, I would write for a couple hours a night. On the weekends, I'd have longer sprints. And then when I finished it, because I learned the first time not to go right out and query it, I got some beta readers, which are people who will read a book and give you some feedback. I got their feedback. I fixed it. I made it as tight as I possibly could. And then I took it out into the world, and I queried it. And I probably queried about 70 agents before I finally got mine. So there's a lot of rejection that goes into taking a book out there. And then I got my agent. He and I rewrote it a bunch of times. And then he took it out to try to sell it. And what many people don't realize is a lot of times, especially for a debut author, a book will die on submission. It's very hard to sell a book, which is one of the reasons why agents don't always want to take new authors. But we were lucky enough to sell it. We sold it in a couple months. We sold it to Blackstone, and then and then it takes. It was like 2 years from when we sold it to when it finally landed on bookshelves. So traditional publishing is a really long game. And so I really understand it if people decide to self-publish, right? That the nice thing about getting it published traditionally is that they pay you, and they handle the advertising and the publicity and things like that. But you still do quite a bit of it on. I mean, here I am, right? Like I'm on a podcast. There's still quite a bit that's expected of you as an author to try to promote your book. It's a lot of work. It's not for the faint of heart. Yeah, very hard. Yeah.
Interesting. And I'm so curious if any of your time in the fitness space helped
Mhm.
prepare you for,
Very much.
yeah.
Yeah. And actually, what also helped prepare me, believe it or not, is even like back when I was like a dancer, right? Like when you walk around and you sell dances, you get turned down, right? And you have to just keep on going and keep on going and keep on going. And then even like with lifting weights, like there, you might try and you might try and you might try, and it might take a lot of time to add, 10 pounds to your squat or whatever. Like there's a lot of falling down and getting up that happens in life. And by the time that I took this book out, I just, I was older. I was used to experiencing failure, but not seeing it as the end. If one agent doesn't want it, that doesn't mean that the next agent doesn't. And you might have to knock on a lot of doors. You might have to have a lot of people turn you down before. But if you really want to do something, you really stick to it. I mean, you have to give it your all, or you'll never know if you could have done it. And so I did. It took everything I had to sell this book. It really did. And then even after you sell it, you launch it, you get it out there, it's still, if you're going to traditionally publish a book and it's out in the world, you will get feedback on it, right? Like if you go to Goodreads, they'll there's a few 1-star reviews, and that's part of the trade-off. If you want to do something, you won't make everybody happy, right? There'll be some people who won't like what you have to say, and you have to believe enough in what you have to say that you're willing to not make everybody happy, because you know what, damn it, you're going to say it anyway, so that's what it takes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it takes for any type of like public facing
Yeah.
production of anything, right?
Yeah.
Is the
Yeah.
audacity to do it anyway. And
Yep.
that's been even a personal journey for me of understanding like, oh,
Yeah.
wait, not everyone's going to like me, or like, what? how's that possible? I'm so likable, or what, or maybe not
Yeah.
even not like you, but they're not
Yeah.
really resonating with whatever it is
Hmm.
that you're creating. And that's totally okay because, I love the analogy that we all have our favorite foods or our favorite cuisine
Yep.
types, right?
Yep.
So somebody might be really into Vietnamese food, whereas you're really into Mexican, or
Yeah.
choose something.
Yeah. And also, if you have something that doesn't push the edge, or you have something that doesn't offend anybody,
Yeah,
it might not appeal to anybody either because it's just bland, right? It's like beige, right? So and you don't have to appeal to everybody. You have to appeal to your reader,
yeah,
right? And so even though like what I write might not appeal to this person over here, it might really appeal to that person over there.
yeah,
Whereas if you tone it down, if you don't want to offend anybody, you might not interest anybody either. You have to say what you want to say, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. I think that is such sage advice.
Yeah.
Like, I've
Yeah.
heard it told in other ways. Like, if you're not offending anyone, you're not doing it right. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, if you're not in your full power, your full voice, you're not going to
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah.
How interesting. Well, I'm curious, if you had a magic wand and you
Hmm.
could make some radical shift, or maybe not even radical, just a change in the world,
Uh-huh.
what would it be?
I would like I keep directing it at women, I guess men too, but men, they mostly feel this way anyway. I would like all women to focus on getting strong. I really think that getting physically strong, I believe that, like, and for me, that's lifting weights, right? I believe that lifting weights will save you. I just believe it with everything I have. I think it's going to make you physically healthier. I think it's going to make you happier. I think it's going to make you mentally sharper. I think it's going to make you kinder. I think it's going to make you kinder to your body. I think it's going to make you kinder to others. I'd like to see the entire female population just take up weight training, you know?
Mm. You heard it here.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm fully on board with that. I love lifting weights, and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's delicious and
Hmm.
beautiful.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily have to only be like. Cause I guess I would say I'd focus on getting strong. So like, because if getting strong for you as your listener is not maybe lifting weights, maybe it's somebody wants to like start. Maybe they're not ready yet to run, but maybe they would like to start walking, and maybe they set a goal for themselves. I'm going to walk a mile every night after work, and as they start to do that, they that for them is getting strong, and then it starts to make them mentally stronger. And then maybe after a month or two, it becomes 2 miles, and then maybe it becomes three, and then maybe they decide to start running, or whatever healthy is to you, whatever strong is to you. I would just like to start to see people pursue that.
Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. I think placing intentionally choosing challenges
Hmm.
um, strengthens us, and then makes us much more capable of handling the things that come to us involuntarily.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, Lori, if you could go back in time and give a younger you some words of wisdom, what age would
Hmm.
you go back to, and what would you say?
I would probably go back to age 10 and tell myself that trying to fit into an external package was not the way to find happiness or to find fulfillment or confidence, right? Not to be so worried about fitting into somebody else's package, but to be worried to be focused on becoming what I want to become, to look internally rather than externally for validation.
Yeah, beautiful. And for anyone who's listening to this who might self-identify as someone who is seeking external validation, what would be some tips that you have for them?
I would think I think it's helpful to start setting internal goals, and they can be small to start with. And you don't have to, it's very hard to just say, like, I'm not going to worry about the external world, right? So I wouldn't say doing that so much as setting some goals for yourself. And as you start to set these goals for yourself and you start to achieve them, the external pressures will start to diminish, because it's very hard just to turn off the outside world. But if you could set a goal for yourself, maybe it's 4 days a week, or maybe you start out small, right? Three days a week, I'm going to exercise, whatever the exercise appeals to you, for 15 minutes a day. But just start to set some goals. Really start to set some goals that are yours and yours alone, that nobody can take away from you. If your goal is to do a push-up, you know, nobody can say, well, you didn't really do it. Whereas like if your goal is to be like attractive or pretty, or to look this way or that way, that's a little more fuzzy, right? A push-up's a push-up, right? A pull-up's a pull-up. And so I'd really like to see us start to hit these internal, these goals that are driven by us, to switch to that growth mentality versus that shrinking mentality. It just really changes you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lori, I would like to open up the floor for you to share anything that's on your heart and your head that you cannot leave this conversation without saying.
Well, I guess I've said it maybe a little bit before, but I will say it again, that just really, we as women need to quit tearing each other down. We need to quit tearing ourselves down, and we need to work together to create a better tomorrow. Strong women lift each other up. And I will stand by that for like the rest of my life.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, Lori, where can everyone find you and find your book?
Okay, so you can find my book anywhere that books are sold. It's available, Barnes and Noble, Target, Amazon, just everywhere. It's available in hard copy, soft copy. It's available electronically. There's an audio version. The audio narrators were very good. So yeah, and anywhere books are sold. And then my website is Lori Brand Writes, and it's LORIBRAND, Writes, RITES. And then my on Instagram, you can find me at Lori Brand Writes and Lifts, because I'm lifting weights on there too. And again, anybody who's thinking about writing a book, if you have questions, you can just hit me up, because I learned so much from doing this, that like I would love to save anybody else some trouble. So if you have any questions about getting traditionally published, I'll tell you anything that I learned that might save you some tears.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And I know you kind of touched on, this book, the one that you ultimately had published, was your voice. It was the thing that you wanted to say.
Yep.
How did that compare to the energy that you had when you first wrote a book to the second? Yeah.
So I think that first book, I think that was something I had to work through. I had recently gone through kind of like a trying time in my life, and I think it was something I had to work through, which is why when I couldn't get an agent for it, and I started, I had different agents who requested the full, which is like when they request a whole manuscript, and they read through it, and some people said, your writing's good, but you need more of this, you need more of that. They gave me some feedback. And I realized that they were right, and I was going to have to do a rewrite of that book to even try to get an agent. And and it was so weird. I thought, yeah, I don't really feel like it, right? And it was just different. Whereas this book, like I wrote with just like this fire burning inside of me. Like when this thing was going down with Jillian Michaels, when this thing was going down with Adele, I just was like, somebody who's got is nobody going to speak? Somebody's got to speak to this. And I felt like, because I had been a bodybuilder, because I've had friends that have had eating disorders, because I was in the fitness world, I was teaching fitness classes and things, and because I was writing for fitness magazines, I sort of felt like, well, why don't you say something, right? And so I felt compelled to, like, I really felt like I needed to say something, and this book was written with a different set of urgency. It was written with the need to get that book out into the world and to not stop until I made it happen. If I hadn't gotten an agent, I didn't tell my husband this, but if I hadn't gotten an agent, I had mentally ballparked in my head how much I was going to self-publish it myself. And I was prepared to throw it up on Amazon for practically free if I had to. But I was in my head, I had ballparked how much I was prepared to spend on this book to self-publish it. I was going to tell my husband one amount, but in my head, I was willing to double it. I was like, man, I'm going to do it. Right. But then, fortunately I got an agent, and then the imprint paid to publish it. But I was going to do it myself. I was just going to pay it. I was going to do it. And I was going to get it out there no matter what. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Lori, for
Yeah.
being here. It's been a pleasure
Yeah.
chatting with you, and I can't wait to read your book. I'm going to Barnes & Noble after the gym tonight. Amazing. Oh, beautiful. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Please check out Lori's work. And as always, I encourage you to share this episode with anyone whose hearts you think could really soak in the nourishment that was shared here today. Love you all and have a great day.
Thanks so much.